You're listening to 105.3, The Gerblin, Dominaria's #1 music source for generic goblin noise.
Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time. I also want to let you guys know that Flipside Gaming is doing another giveaway for Guilds of Ravnica. If you place an order at flipsidegaming.com between September 3rd and October 7th using the promo code MTGMudsta, you'll be entered to win. We've decided to limit entry as one per person to give everyone a more fair chance. So have fun and good luck. No time for chit chat, let's get into today's game. We have a new player, Tyler, who's brought his Azusa deck, keeping Beast Within, 2 Forests, Woodland Bellower, Mana Crypt, Tooth and Nail, and Cavern of Souls. Matt has reassembled his Bosh deck, keeping a hand with Unwinding Clock, Gilded Lotus, Spine of Ishsa, Goblin Welder, Sanctum of Ugin, Urza's Mine, and a Mountain. Trevor has built his Atraxa deck, keeping an Arcane Sanctum, Seaside Citadel, Temple of Malady, Fog Bank, Venser the Sojourner, and a Farhaven Elf. Last but not least, Mike, who you remember from the Thrasios and Timna deck, has rejoined us, playing Lord Windgrace. He keeps a Dakmor Salvage, an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, a Forest, a Blood Crypt, Nissa Vital Force, and a Hero's Downfall. Matt wins the die roll and starts us off. Matt plays a Mountain, and he passes. Mike plays a tapped Blood Crypt, passing. Tyler plays a Cavern of Souls, naming elves. He then casts a Mana Crypt, and we see the Fabled turn 1 Azusa. He then plays 2 more Forests, and passes turn. Trevor plays Temple of Malady, which is kind of lackluster compared to what Tyler just did, scrying the card to the bottom. Matt plays an Urza's Mine, and he passes. Mike plays a Forest, and he also passes. Tyler rolls for the Mana Crypt trigger, and doesn't lose any life. He plays a Dryad Arbor as his land for turn, and he passes. Trevor plays a Wooded Foothills, cracking it and taking 1, and then takes 2 more to find a Shockland with blue in it. He casts a Fog Bank, and passes before searching. Matt plays a Darksteel Citadel, and casts Basalt Monolith before passing to Mike. Mike plays his Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and pays 1 to cast Soul Ring, passing to Tyler. Tyler once more avoids taking damage from his crypt, and he draws for turn. He casts Attempt with Discovery, but no one takes him up on his offer. This has Tyler go and grab Gaia's Cradle, which comes into play, and he passes. Trevor plays a Ghost Quarter, and we see Farhaven Elf hit the field. He goes to find a basic, and passes to Matt. Matt plays a Sanctum of Ugin, and casts a Gilded Lotus. He then taps the Lotus to help pay for his Unwinding Clock, and he passes to Mike. Matt untaps his artifacts alongside Mike's untap step, and let's assume that he does so as long as he has the Unwinding Clock on the field for the rest of the game. Mike casts Lord Windgrace in his main phase, and upticks his Walker, discarding Dakmor Salvage, and draws 2 cards. Mike then plays a Swamp, and he passes. Tyler once again avoids damage, and casts Woodland Bellower in his main phase. He goes and grabs Courser of Crufix, and reveals a Forest off the top, which he plays, gaining 1 life. He reveals another Forest, and plays it, gaining a 2nd life. Moving to combat, Tyler hits Lord Windgrace for 1 with Azusa, and passes turn. Trevor plays an Island for his land for turn, and we see Venser hit the field. Trevor upticks Venser, bouncing the Farhaven Elf, and passes as he searches for a basic. Matt plays a Mountain for his turn, and pays 7 to cast Spine of Ishsa, targeting Tyler's Cradle as it comes into play. Tyler is ready for this with a Heroic Intervention, negating the artifact's Enter the Battlefield effect. Matt then drops a Goblin Welder and casts a Mind Stone. He then passes to Mike. Mike dredges his Dakmor Salvage instead of drawing for his turn, and then upticks Windgrace in his main phase, discarding the salvage and drawing 2 cards. Mike then casts a Tireless Tracker, and he plays a Mountain, gaining a Clue token. At the end of Mike's turn, Matt cracks his Mind Stone to draw a card. Tyler rolls for his Crypt trigger, finally losing the roll and taking 3. He draws and plays 3 forests off the top, gaining 1 life each time. He then pays 9 mana, and Tooth and Nail gets entwined, allowing Tyler to go and find 2 creatures from his library and put them onto the field. He grabs Avenger of Zendikar and Bane of Progress. Responding to the Bane trigger, Mike sacrifices his Clue token, drawing a card and putting a +1/+1 counter on his tracker. The Bane then blows up 7 other artifacts and enchantments, and gains that many +1/+1 counters. Tyler then resolves the Avenger trigger, counting up his lands and gaining 10 plant tokens. He taps his Cradle for 14 green mana, and he casts an Archetype of Endurance before using some of his remaining mana to cast Natural Order, sacrificing one of his newly made plant tokens. He goes to his library for a green creature, and he grabs Eternal Witness, returning Tooth and Nail to his hand. He then moves to combat, and Tyler swings the Woodland Bellower at Venser, but Trevor's ready and blocks the Fog Bank. Trevor plays a tapped Arcane Sanctum as his land for turn, and he pays 3 mana to cast Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. A bit envious of Tyler's board state, Trevor upticks her to make a plant token and tries to blend in. Matt plays a mountain and casts Scrap Mastery, swapping everyone's artifacts on the board for the ones they have in the bin. Obviously, Matt benefits the most from this, and with his mana rocks back, he casts Planar Bridge. Matt then activates the Welder, swapping the Spine for his Darksteel Citadel, and puts the Spine to his hand when it hits the graveyard. Matt then sacrifices his Mind Stone and draws a card. Mike dredges instead of drawing for his turn and puts 2 cards to the bin. He casts a Squandered Resources in his first main phase, and then sacrifices a Forest and a Swamp for 2 mana to the resources, and downtakes Windgrace to bring back a Forest and the Cinder Glade. He uses his floating mana, the Forest, and his Soul Ring to cast Nissa, Vital Force, and he upticks her, untapping his Forest. Mike passes, realizing he should have 2 clue tokens, which I'm happy to loan him. Tyler also decides it's time to cast Beast Within, and targets Matt's Unwinding Clock. Matt responds to this by activating his bridge, and goes to grab a Darksteel Forge. The spell still tries to resolve the best it can, meaning nothing blows up, but Matt still gets a 3/3 Beast. Sorry, Tyler. Tyler rolls for his Mana Crypt trigger again, and his luck seems to be fading as he takes the hit once more, and loses 3 life. He plays a Forest, and all of his plant tokens gain a +1/+1 counter thanks to the Avenger's Landfall ability. Tyler then recasts the Entwined Tooth and Nail, and goes to grab Terracodon and Ulvenwald Hydra. He targets Venser, Urborg, and Nissa with Terracodon's trigger, and goes to grab a Temple of the False God with his Hydra trigger. This pumps his plants by another +1/+1 counter, and moving to combat, he swings literally everything at Matt. At this point though, Mike makes Matt a deal, offering to save him if Matt saves Mike for last. Matt agrees, and they seal the deal with a handshake. Mike makes good on this deal with Constant Mist, paying the buyback and sacrificing a Forest to fog the combat step. With nothing else, Tyler passes. Trevor pays 4 to cast Supreme Verdict in the main phase, and he upticks Nissa to make a plant token. He plays a tapped Temple of Enlightenment, scrying the top card, and bottoming it before passing to Matt. Matt plays a mountain, and he casts Grim Monolith, which along with his other rocks, he uses to activate the Planar Bridge. He goes to his library, and he puts out the Rings of Brighthearth. Matt is now able to make infinite colorless mana between the rings, some startup mana, and his Basalt Monolith, which Tyler kindly illustrates with his hand gestures. Matt uses some of this to cast Bosh, and then recasts his Spine of Ishsa, blowing up Tyler's Caverns. With the Spine hitting the field, Matt sacrifices the Sanctum of Ugin to go and find a Dross Scorpion, and puts it to his hand. Matt then casts the Dross Scorpion and passes his turn, where Mike responds to sacrifice a clue and draws a card. Mike draws for his turn and upticks Lord Windgrace, discarding Dakmor Salvage again to draw 2 cards. He plays a Wooded Foothills, and he casts Exploration. Mike then cracks the Wooded Foothills to go and find a Stomping Grounds untapped, taking 3 total, and he shortcuts showing that he'll be casting Hour of Promise before going to search. With nothing else, Mike goes to search for his lands, and Matt once more activates his Planar Bridge, and he goes to grab a Pentavis. With the Pentavis on the field, Matt is now able to make infinite colorless mana, and untap his Planar Bridge over and over again by making a Pentavite token with the Pentavis, then sacrificing it back to the Pentavis, which in turn triggers the Dross Scorpion, letting him untap the bridge or whatever permanent he wants. What this means is that Matt is able to play out every permanent from his library, but he doesn't have to, as all he needs is Sensei's Divining Top. By activating the top to draw a card and put it on top, Matt is then able to find it again with the Planar Bridge and put it out, and essentially draws out his library, or at least until he's able to find Comet Storm, which he then in turn dumps all of his mana into, killing the table, but making sure to tell Mike that he's targeted last, thus upholding the bargain that Matt and Mike had made earlier on. From the turns alone, it should be very clear that this game was much shorter than Monday's 2.5 hour game. In fact, this game was only 40 minutes long. I think it highlights that when one opponent becomes a giant threat, by dealing with that opponent, you're often leaving yourself open for another one to swoop in and win the game. This was illustrated by Tyler bursting out the gate turn 1 by casting Azusa and having 6 mana by turn 3. At the time, I do think Mike saving Matt was probably the right, since everyone needed help to deal with Tyler, but at the same time, Mike didn't know that Trevor had Supreme Verdict in hand, which meant that Matt would have died, and then Trevor would have board wiped and basically stabilized the board anyway. I think the troublesome card for this game was probably the Unwinding Clock coupled with the Planar Bridge, as it allowed Matt to basically find whatever artifact he needed at instant speed. It's a shame that Mike's Lord Windgrace deck didn't perform very well. He didn't get very many lands or ramp spells, and basically he spent most of his time upticking his Planeswalker to discard and draw 2 cards. Mike has told me about a few other games he's played with the deck, and typically this is not the norm, so hopefully we'll be able to see it again in the future and see it do better. Trevor's Atraxa deck is newly sleeved up, so he's still working out some kinks and testing it out. He had very little ramp early on, and unfortunately a lot of his lands coming into play tapped didn't let him get into the game. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.